Good evening. Welcome to You Make the Call. I'm your host, Barry Sinewitz, and I think we have a pretty entertaining show tonight. I hope everybody out there is enjoying this amazing weather we've had for the last 3 or 4 days. 70 degrees on Monday, 60 yesterday, 50 today. It doesn't get any better than this, and hopefully spring's right around the corner, so we're all looking forward to that. We had pretty good response to our first show last week, and I really wanted to thank our first guest, Brian Odessa, for coming on. The response I got was very favorable, and we're definitely going to have Brian back. So Brian, if you're out there watching, be prepared to come back. I also want to give a shout out to Brian's business, and I didn't really know in detail what he did, but he does help young kids who play hockey at high levels. He's a coach and an academic advisor for 17 to 20-year-old kids. So if anybody has a young, promising hockey player, reach out to Brian. He'll do you right. So our guest tonight, I want to go right into who our guest is tonight. I first met this gentleman, I would say it's about 10 years ago. He was, at the time, on the PBD Police, and when I was the Ward 6 counselor, they had area commanders. And each ward had an area commander, and whenever there was an issue in our ward, I would go to the area commander, and that's where I first met this gentleman, probably about 10 years ago. He attended aggregate meetings when we had issues with the blasting and when that was all contentious. And I casually saw him once in a while in front of the city council representing, the police, whether it was traffic studies or whatever the issues were. And he recently retired from the PBD Police, I believe, and he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 32 years, but it could be 35. I'll let him say this. And last year, he ran for counselor at large. He had a great showing. He didn't win, but he did himself proud. So I'd like to introduce John DeRosa. John, hey, welcome to You Make the Call, buddy.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Hello, everyone.
So John, just tell everybody at home, just tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to be a police officer.
I've been a long-time PBD resident. I graduated back in 1980, just dated myself. My family's lived here most of my life. One of my brothers was involved in law enforcement, so I was exposed to it and always wanted to be involved. I was fortunate enough to be able to get on the PBD Police Department back in 1987 as a reserve officer, then 1989 as a full-time police officer. I've been here for 32 years, including my reserve time, where I rose in rank sergeant, lieutenant, captain, and I was captain for probably about the last 10 years or so. I also was the union president for the Captains Association for that 10 years. And again, rising through the ranks, I feel very lucky and fortunate that I was able to do it in my hometown.
Oh, that's great. And 32 years is a lifetime of service. It's really, thank you for your service. In terms of 32 years on the job, have you any memorable events, cases that stand out in your mind that were remarkable or anything?
I would have to say, in 30 plus years of full-time law enforcement, you see a lot and you do a lot. I was fortunate where, and funny, as I ran for office, you bump into people that you were on various calls and were involved in various things in their life. But I would have to say, for me, the most rewarding was the last 10 years or so being involved on a case-by-case basis with the community. When we did the area command, under the old administration, the old chief, with the area command, I was able to actually go out into the neighborhoods. You get into the root cause of problems, you get into issues, quality of life issues. You get to work with the residents, business owners, churches, and elected officials, obviously, as you said. Sure. I was before the city council, to try to correct any issues that were going on in the city.
In terms of being on the job in dangerous situations, have you ever have to pull your firearm and you ever have to discharge your firearm in any serious situations during your career?
Over my career, I have had to utilize my firearm. I've never had to discharge it. But, there's a misnomer. Everybody says, well, it's only Peabody. Let me tell you, there's a lot of things that have gone on, a lot of things that end up here or start here over the years, and you know, it's your training, and again, you want to make sure you go home safe. That's really what it's about.
Okay, so once again, thank you so much for your 32 years of service. So before we start getting into a lot of the issues John and I are going to discuss, I'm going to go on a little, I'm not going to call it a rant, but I'm going to call it maybe a sermon. I don't know what we're going to call it. But I want to talk about something that's really bothering me. And I was a city councilor here in Peabody for 10 years. And I'm asking people at home, what do you think is the most important characteristic or trait that you expect out of your elected official? Now think about that. Besides brains, we all want our elected officials to have brains. But what would you say? What do you think it is? And I would say to you that word is trust. And you know, saying, what is this guy talking about? So I'm just going to give you a little story. So I got elected in 2007, and I had an issue. Obviously, the situation at Aggregate Industries and the quarry was really difficult. There was a lot of animosity, a lot of bad blood. So, new to the job, Aggregate called me up and asked me, can you come down? We want to meet with you. So I went down and I met with them. And then about 4 days later, a couple of the neighbors I ran into, and I said, hey, I met with Aggregate. And they said, you did? What did they say? What were you doing there? And I'm like, whoa. So I was like, this is not a good scene of what's going on with the relationship here. So I learned a valuable lesson that day. So the next time, Aggregate called me again, said they wanted to meet with me. So what I did is before I met with them, I called some of the neighborhood leaders and I said, hey, look, I just want to let you know I'm going into a meeting with Aggregate. We're going to be talking about this, or electrical building, whatever the issue was. And they said, okay, great, thanks for reaching out. Let us know how it went. And why did I do that? Why did I do that? And I wanted to make sure with those neighbors that the process was transparent and open and that they trusted me. Because if without trust, you have no respect. So I didn't want them thinking I was going in and making backroom deals on whatever thing they were trying to accomplish there. So I tried to look at as every vote that I took was in the best interest of this city and the residents that I represent. So now let's flash forward to J.B. Thomas. And this is really bothering me. So, you know, in terms of the Ward 4 councilor, to me, in the actions that he's taken, has really been supporting the development at the J.B. Thomas. And we know all the animosity, and by some of the actions that he's taken, it's created distrust. And that's where this is going. So a few days, I'm not going to get into, we all know what those actions were, but also, so the developer's 40B lawyer files for the 40B 2 days after Christmas. And if we weren't on TV, I'd probably be using some expletives to describe that action, because that was done on purpose. It was done on purpose to delay the process, because then you're into New Year's and a week goes by, you got 30 days to respond, the city has to file for an extension. So that was kind of it's good for them, not so great for the city. So 2 weeks ago, the Ward 4 councilor had a fundraiser. And at that fundraiser was the 40B lawyer who represents the J.B. Thomas development. And I'm like, I just, and I'm assuming if you're going to a fundraiser, you're writing a check. It's a fundraiser. What else do you do at a fundraiser? You just come up, show up, eat and drink for free and screw. You're going to sit there and you're going to give a check and you're going to, so how do I know this? So I'm on Facebook, and what do I see? I see a picture of the Ward 4 councilor in a circle, arm in arm with the developer, all smiles. And I go, oh my God, I can't imagine how the residents of that area feel. How they feel that they just been total disrespect. And And I don't understand it. And then also in the photograph is another developer, Mr. Tedisco's in the picture, and he's coming to the council tomorrow for a special permit. Now, I'm assuming he was a fundraiser and he was there to give a check for a fundraiser. And I don't know what's going on, but it certainly is a lousy look. And the people of this city deserve better. And I hope that, that the things are done in the best interests of the residents of the city. We deserve and expect better from our elected officials. I'll tell you another story. I have lots of stories. But in terms of accepting monies, I was on the council and there was a special permit for a developer in Ward 1. 2 weeks before the special permit, the developer sends me a check. And I go, wow, I didn't know I was such a great guy that people just send me money. So I looked at the check. He had a special permit come in. I took the check, I made a copy of it, I mailed it back to him, and I said, I think it's totally inappropriate that 2 weeks before a special permit that you would send me a check. And I will not accept it. Boom, and I sent it back. So those are the things that are bothering me, and the transparency and trust. And if you don't have trust, what kind of a system do we have? So I know you're in the hot seat tonight, John. I just said a lot of things, but as a police officer, there are things as character, integrity, honor, duty. So if you relate this back to being an elected official, do you have any take or any say or what you think of what I just said, what you see is going on? You just went through the election process. What do you see, or if you have any experience in any of this or seen what's been going on?
Well, in law enforcement, there's actually a state statute we're not allowed to accept anything over $50. And that's by state statute, and obviously that's to keep ethically and morally correct for law enforcement because we enforce the laws. The election is somewhat different because of donations and things of that nature. When I ran for office, I didn't have any lawyers or any developers, give any money towards my campaign. I had a lot of residents and friends and family members that did it. I'm sure it's legal in regards to the way the law is written for elected officials. My only thing is it's kind of a difficult balance because had I got in, you represent the residents. And if I'm in the middle of some sort of an argument or I'm standing up for the residents to stop a development, I don't think I would cross the line at that particular point just because I don't want there to be any issue with someone thinking that I'm taking donations from this person.
It's about your integrity.
Correct. It's about ethics and about integrity. And especially while we were running, everybody talked about traffic and overdevelopment, and we also did talk about affordable housing. That's true, but that was for elderly. So again, the overdevelopment was such a big issue, and the traffic was such a big issue. With so many various projects going on here in the city, that downtown alone, you're talking like 287 homes, or I should say housing units, whether it's condos, apartments, that are going to be going on just by virtue of volume of the traffic, as well as, now I'll go back to the J.B. Thomas project. I walked that neighborhood. That was one of the first neighborhoods I walked, and I did not come across anyone who supported it, not one person. So to me, as a councilor, that would have been my job to fight for those residents. They're the ones who live here. They're the ones who pay the taxes. They're the ones who have a say. And I'm not even getting into everything else with the school systems, services. And if a developer wants to come in and put that kind of a development in, there's got to be a way the city can make them pay for infrastructure improvements, traffic lights improvements, roadway improvements, sidewalk improvements. I don't see any of that, or having I'm not privy to all that, but I haven't seen any of that come out in the newspaper or any of the plans that I've read thus far.
Right. And I want to take a step back just about campaign finances and money. In my time in the 10 years on the council, there's nothing wrong with a $50 donation, a 10, $125. Those were about what I got. I don't think anybody ever gave me $500. Now I'm seeing $500, $1,000 donations to ward councilors, and I'm like, whoa. And is there a quid pro quo when you take $1,000 from somebody or $2,000 from different people? And that's bothersome, because the people have to know you're acting in the best interests of the city and the neighborhood that you're there to protect. So in terms, and you segued into a great topic, is overdevelopment. So Endicott Street, as I said, the developer was just at the Ward 4 Council's fundraiser, and he's coming tomorrow night for a special permit. And what I don't understand is, here we have up the street at the J.B. Thomas, we have neighbors fighting for their lives to protect their values of their homes, their quality of life, just everything that goes on with that 40B development. And as you can see, all the signs out there, stop overdevelopment, and I give credit to the neighbors for doing that and standing up. But what's with the developer? He knows what's going on up the street. Now he wants to put a 4-story development in an area of R1A zoning. Does not care about, what about access and traffic? You know that area. So, can you make it 3 stories? Give the neighborhood a break, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night if Sue comes up to protest. But that area is a captain on the police force. You've been around it. What's that area like in terms? Where's the access going to be?
Right. Well, as far as I can see, the only main access is either going to be Lowell Street or it's going to be Andover Street, and both right now are overtaxed. You can't move on Lowell Street during rush hour. Not only with the development on Endicott Street, but if King Street does go through, with all the vehicles coming in and out of King Street, with all the vehicles coming in and out of Endicott Street, let alone people who are trying to get to 128 that use Endicott Street as it is to get to Andover Street if they don't use Lowell Street, I just think the traffic is just going to be phenomenal. And also off of Endicott Street, in Berry Street and that area there, it's just so congested. Everything is just so congested in that area, and it's not a lot of land. So, I myself haven't looked at the plans or have any idea of what they're trying to do, but parking alone, I'm not sure what, is in the plans.
Well, I understand coming from Lowell Street or Andover Street, but when you come in, I don't believe the access is going to be right through where the 2 properties are, and I think they've bought another property to expand that property. They're going to be going down one of those side roads, creating a lot of traffic come into the back, and that property, because many years ago I looked at one of those properties to buy, and it was a contaminated site. So I don't know what the plan is. I don't know if there's any remediation planned, but when I looked at the building, you ever remember the old Batman TV show? And the floors, the bad guys had the floors. That's what that building was like.
Okay.
And as soon as I spent about 10 minutes in there, I go, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I didn't want. But Berry Street, I believe, is all polluted. Those properties are polluted. So whoever is seeing this, I think there's a lot of issues that DEP has to look at. I think our engineers, water, sewers. And kind of how much traffic are you going to put down these little side streets on these quiet little streets that people have?
Right.
So there's a quality of life. In terms of what you think, in terms of public safety, what impact is going to be with police, fire, EMTs? What kind of volume? When you start talking 1,000 more units in the city or more, because we talk Oak Street. We've got the J.B. Thomas, Oak Street 80, J.B. Thomas 130, Farm Ave 116, Sonic is about 60, Endicott Street's 42, Latitude's 50 or 60, Dearborn Road's about 150. Birchwood's 23, Stonegate, it could be the sky's the limit there. I don't know how many houses they can get. And you got the L. Fine building sitting there ripe for 800 to 1,000 units. What does that do to? Because I'm a firm believer that people. I don't agree with the stack 'em and pack 'em mentality of some of the community development departments in the state, especially the state. Because I think when you put large amounts of people in small spaces, it breeds a lot of bad things. So it's for public safety, besides the obvious, the traffic.
Correct.
The streets being deteriorated. Like, what do you see as we're going to need to hire more police, more fire? How does that impact the job you guys do?
Law enforcement itself will see a huge increase in calls for service, whether it's a quality of life issue, whether it's a noise complaint. Also, assist ambulance calls. That's another major call that police, fire, and ambulance go to on a regular basis. You'll have, unfortunately, domestics usually occur in dwellings. You'll have a lot of times minor crimes or things of even just disturbances, being east of motor vehicles, various calls for service. Putting that many more residents in the city will obviously increase the volume of calls. And also, you know, a lot of people don't really think about this as response to calls. Unless it's an emergency call, you can't use your blue lights and sirens, which will create a longer response time for law enforcement to get to a call for service. If it's just a regular call for service, which means you would need more police officers on the street and cruises to cover more calls for service, because we're not quite as mobile during the day or early evening because of the volume of traffic. And traffic has always been the major complaint that we've gotten at the police department for many, many years here. So,
Okay. Excuse me, John, we have a phone call. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Barry. I want to wish you good luck with the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate
And
that.
I just want to say, is the city not against all this development, which I'm hoping that be the case, because that would just devastate us, in my opinion.
Well,
I was wondering your thoughts on that, and if they aren't so against it, how can we prevent it?
Well, I think that some of the projects the city is supporting, when you talk in, like Farm Ave is a perfect example. They want to do a friendly 40B up there. So friendly 40B means you work with the city. The Sonic development is a friendly 40B. There's another one. I think in terms of, that's a tough question because I don't want to disrespect anybody. But I think on some level, some of the developments are supported, and I would say it this way: if I'm going to a gunfight, I don't bring a knife, and I would say that if we're going to fight the 40B at J.B. Thomas, we need to hire a lawyer. We don't need, letters are nice, but I don't believe that letters are going to beat a lawyer in front of a panel of state people. We have to show a strong case why we don't feel that development belongs in that neighborhood. So I think the city supports some of them, and I think some of them they don't. Like I know on Oak Street that they were fighting that tooth and nail. How you fight it is a different.
Thomas would just be detrimental.
I agree with you, John. Do you have any?
No, I agree. Again, not having been in an elected position in the city, but maybe stop by cap and building permits. Maybe change city ordinances to cap building permits. Don't allow all these building permits to go in. I mean, you're talking such a huge amount of development. And as Barry said, yeah, the friendly 40Bs, it's well worth it. They're in good locations, great access to it, where they're probably not going to flood our downtown roads or Lowell Street as some of these other developments would. And it's also helping us to get to that cap that we need to get to.
Right.
I don't agree with the 40B, but again, that's at the state level, and there's not much we can do about it unless the state changes the law, because I think they really take a lot of control away from, your local elected officials and city people.
I agree. And what do you, just to not to change the subject, but I'm really following 2 Washington Street. I just love that building. I mean, just the history down there and just the look of that building, the inside of that building. What are your thoughts and where you think that building is going to go? I hope to God we can do something with it and keep it.
Well,
I hate to see it cost us millions and millions of dollars, but I would hate to see that building get torn down or anything happen to that building.
well,
I'm going to hang up and open it up to somebody else so that.
Okay.
But I'll listen and hear what you got to say. And good luck, Barry.
all right. Thank you. Thank you for calling in.
Night.
So as far as the Betancourt building, we all kind of know the story of what happened there. And when the mayor got the property back and put it up for sale, $750, there was no buyers. $500, there's no buyers. So the building needs a huge amount of work. That means money to any developer that wants to come in. So I don't know what the plan is. There's been talk of maybe a children's museum going in there. The question is, can the building stay? Is it worth spending 2, 3? But I don't no clue what the renovation costs are. But right now, it's not a safe building. I remember one year they tried to do a Halloween event in there, and and the fire department's like, "Are you crazy? These kids, you'll end up in the basement when you fall through the floor." So it is a beautiful building, and the vote on the council originally is because it was a historic, beautiful building, and the tree in the front, it is beautiful. So hopefully they can come up with something, but we're already into it for $1.2 million with the lawsuit and all that, and I don't know how much more public money we can throw into it before hopefully the private sector can, get a shot at it. So I hope that answers where it is. I haven't heard anything about it. It's kind of in limbo. These things tend to take a while. When you're asking people to spend a lot of money, it does take time. So thank you for the call. And back to the amount of units, John. Mm-hmm. So let's not forget the North Shore Mall is coming for apartments. And I just found out, because retail is leaving, and with Amazon, do I agree with it? I feel bad because once you start losing retail, you're losing jobs for everybody, you're losing kids after school, you're losing a lot. But it is gonna, JCPenney announced it's gonna close 12 stores. But Burton's is now leaving the mall. Burton's announced that they're leaving the mall. And that's a real blow. And where are they going? Linfield Marketplace. So I think it's just a matter of time before the apartments come. They rezoned that Alto Forno building. That was a mishmash, mishigas of apartments, hotel rooms, bars. It was just... They always wanted apartments, but they couldn't get the zoning change when I was on the council. So they waited till I left, and then they got the zoning change. So that's how that went down. But I didn't get any checks from the developer. I promise you that. But so I guess kind of a question is: do we sacrifice the quality of life for the people who live here for people who don't?
No.
Right. So
No.
So we need housing. Right? There is certain, and I think you were spot on when you said, friendly 40B on Farm Ave, on
Newbury Street,
yeah. Dearborn Road. Those will work, and they won't destroy neighborhoods and characters of neighborhoods, and where that woman I think lives in that J.B. Thomas area. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens if they put that 4-story building in an area of R1A. 4 stories is 40 feet, 50 feet, whatever it is. That's a big
And that's the
building.
one on Endicott?
That's the one on Endicott Street.
Now, when I was running for office, I had also read at one point in time, because what's going on Oak Street, excuse me, at the Elks property, it's in litigation right now. That they're trying to stop it. But I thought I had read in the Salem News back in August that the city even tried to make a land deal that they would go down to 5 Berry Street, which I don't know if that's even Again, it was in the newspaper, so I don't know if anything ever came out of it.
That would be a huge
But-
impact on that small neighborhood right
Right.
there.
Well,
all
that's what I'm
those
saying.
areas.
By the time you get through with Endicott and then, you know, Berry Street. Again, I don't think they could put 80 units on Berry Street. I really don't believe so. But again, you know.
Well, I guess the question is how high can you go?
Right.
How high? You know, if they're going to do 5 stories at JB on 3 acres of land, I don't know how Berry Street looks bigger to me. I don't know what the easements are. I would think that Mr. Tedisco is going to need easements from the city because those properties are kind of contiguous as you drive around to the back.
Right.
And so those are logistics, but just respect the people around you. He's not applying for a 40B. If he gets denied, which I don't think he will, I think that for whatever reason he'll get it. And I hope he reduces it down to 3. That's all I can say, and be respectful. And we already bent over backwards for the guy. We changed the zoning. We voted to change the zoning on the parking so we could build all the apartments on Main Street where Stanzi's is above there. Without that zoning change for the parking, he couldn't build.
Okay.
So we really bent over backwards for him to. Oh, we have another call. Go ahead. You're on, caller.
Hey, Barry, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for calling in.
Well, listen, Barry, this friendly 40B that you referred to, I've been referring to, you know, I have some questions about that because Farm Ave is, as you know, you're city councilor, that's a DD district. And there's some commercial enterprises going on right next door that's not conducive to residential properties.
Correct. So, look, in our zone, this goes back many years when we were doing the zoning. We do allow residential development in the DDD. I tried to have it removed when we were doing the zoning, and I got my brains kicked in. I was this close for having it removed from the zoning because I didn't want any more apartments up next to Dearborn. There's a huge amount of apartments there. But I just didn't think at the time, being in the DDD, they should have it there. So now, that's what I don't understand. When I watched a little of that Board of Appeals when they said there's no housing in the DDD.
I'm going to get into that. But on Farm Ave, there are about 3 commercial enterprises, which, in many of city council meetings that I attended to, the issue of zoning and interference with other activities, like down on Foster Street, which is an industrial park, that we put those condominiums in the old tanneries down on Foster Street.
Yeah.
And I think it was not Oak Street, but I think it was Mason Street. The neighbors were complaining that there was a trucking enterprise down there at 2 o'clock in the morning. The trucks would be backing up, and they went before the city council, and the city council said they have by right to operate at 2 a.m. and move their trucks in and out and disturb your peace. Now we have a earth material operation up on Farm Ave, been there for 50 years, wood trucking and a couple other enterprises, that mulch pile that burnt a couple of times, three years in a row, and you want to put 116 units up there right next to it within spitting distance from. And you're going to tell those operations that have been there for 50 years, hey, time to move out because we want apartments up here? Because somebody's a friend of the corner office?
Look, I agree with you 110%. You know, when they try to put residential into industrial zones, it's not a good mix. Now, this is so-called 40B. The administration is supporting it. Whatever comes out of it, if there's complaint, look at I'll give you an example. Stanzi's, great restaurant. I guess they're having a bang-up time. The people who rent it up there are already complaining.
Yeah,
about the noise, and we haven't even hit to summer yet.
that's right.
So, but let the renter beware or the buyer beware, because
But the whole
It is
the
what
whole
it is.
purpose-
it is what it is.
The
and
whole
look at
purpose of zoning is to foresee the future and see future planning, the planning department, say these things don't mix well. It's like that paint factory down in Danforsport that blew up a few years ago. You know, it was all those residential properties are right around it, and they got destroyed.
No, I do agree. Like Pulaski Street, that old mill building.
Right.
And they're trying to put apartments in there, and they're waiting for Jim Mitsoulas to retire to get a zoning change. And right next door is Mako. And I've
Right.
got a dose of Mako over there that you want to pass out for the odors are so strong.
Well,
so don't leave your windows open. That's what you'll tell them after they rent
the
it.
other thing, this is a mad rush to put 40B in friendly ones, because if you watch the Zoning Board of Appeals Monday night, I think it was Monday night, the attorney representing the developer said the 116 units, we're going to count all of them as affordable in the head count, and that once that was built, we'd only be 5 units short of our 10%, which means if he gets his approval first, Endicott Street, and theoretically, you could deny him because we've on the books we met our 10%.
And that's the caller. That's the $1 million question. Where do we stand on our 40B limit, where we reach that 10%? I don't know. I just you get numbers, but like all these developments, you gotta reach it, and then we can control our own destiny. We can control how we want to create this city and make it function, and not let people destroy small, tight-knit neighborhoods so he can make a buck. And I'm telling you, L. Fine Building is prime, and if they don't get to the 40B real quick, you're going to have 800 apartments in there.
Well, you look at that location, as you brought it up twice. Right next to it is a chemical plant. Right next to that is a used car junk dealer. I mean, is that a neighborhood that you want to put residential properties in the middle of? And it's in the middle of an industrial park.
But you know, absolutely not. But they've set a precedent that they're going to do it on Farm Ave next to mulch piles with fire and this and that. So how can you deny one and not the other?
Well,
you know?
As we talk about public safety and common sense, who's driving the train here? Developers running the city, or is the city running the city?
Well, here's a question for your caller. I live in Ward 6, and my water pressure is horrible. And
when you hook up to Lidfield, no problem.
Well, that'll be another battle royal. Don't worry. But so you talk to people up and down the street, their water pressure is horrible. So we're going through this water infrastructure plan where I talked to one resident and said his water bill tripled.
Yeah.
You know, so people, and I will say this, when they do this infrastructure plan, if our water pressure doesn't improve and our water rates triple, we got a problem. So I'm getting the feeling that the water infrastructure plan was done for 80 Oak Street, J.B.
Absolutely.
Thomas,
That's
Farm
the whole
Ave,
purpose.
Sonic, Latitudes, because with Dearborn Road, because without the water, you can't build any of these. Remember the fire, that horrible fire up there, John? When the poor firemen didn't have enough water to put out the...
Dearborn Road, if you remember, Barry, they were supposed to build a water tower up there. I think Jim Liakos was adamant about having it, and deals were made, or however, it didn't happen.
They stiffed them.
And we had a couple of fires up there. We had a water issue.
Yeah.
But you're right. We're spending $37 million of water and sewer improvements for the developers coming to town.
Yeah. Well, we understand it. Let's just hope that people do the right thing, caller. Thanks for calling in.
All right. Take care.
All right. Have a good night.
Bye.
Let's change gears.
Okay.
Let's change gears.
Sounds good.
So, yeah, I mean, these are, well, you see the passion that people have and, you know, protecting their own neighborhoods and their house. And
Don't blame them.
the mayor's raise. The mayor's raise came up before the city council, and somebody really gave him a heck of a raise, $2,400. And I'm sitting there, I'm going to switch this over to you and get your thought. I'm talking too much tonight, John. What is your take on the mayor's raise?
I think he deserves it. First of all, it's a difficult job. It's not a 9-to-5 job. And again, this doesn't mean I agree with everything the mayor does, but that position in and of itself requires a lot of commitment of your time, your family's time. Also, in the future, if somebody else decides to run for it, you got to raise the salary, that it's going to be advantageous for somebody to get involved as well. But I think the mayor deserves the raise. Again, whether you agree with what he does or doesn't do is irrelevant. It's the position, and the position deserves that raise. And I really don't think, I believe it was a 2% raise.
Yeah,
a 2% raise. I mean,
it's almost insulting to the mayor. I mean, I would take that. $2,400. You got a $165 million budget, and you give you a 2% raise. Well, meanwhile, every department head's getting 2, 2, 2, and 2. So it's certainly he should have gotten more. And there was the issue with the mayor's raise is somebody on the council has to step forward and show some leadership and separate the council raise from the mayor's raise. They don't belong linked. And I will tell you this, I was on the council when that vote took place to link them. And the reason that we voted for that is the council hadn't had a raise in like 16 years. Because you have to understand the logic of how raises happen. In the city charter, the city council gets a raise during an election year, if they get one. The mayor's raise comes in an off year. Okay. So no one in their right mind is going to stand up and say, we have one more, and say, I want a raise when you're up for election. You also just put the noose around your neck. Meanwhile, so they need to be disconnected, and I hope somebody steps up and shows some leadership on the council and says, this isn't right. But we have another caller. Go ahead. You're on, caller.
Hi. I just wanted to ask you both, thank you for your time tonight, but there's been a lot of talk in the presidential election about term limits. And I just wanted to get your thoughts about term limits on a local level. It seems like a lot of these politicians are just, in for one term and they're in for life. Would you support term limits in Peabody?
Most certainly. I'm a huge term limit person. I don't think anyone should be in politics for too long. I think you lose touch with what goes on every day. Also, once you're in a power position, that's a power position. You're calling shots. In a lot of ways, you lose touch sometimes, not always, and not every politician, but you do lose touch with your constituents. On the local level, some of the councilors I know do an outstanding job staying with constituent services. I admire them for that. But, running in this past election, I heard a lot. I heard a lot from the residents. And again, I'm good, bad, or indifferent. I just heard a lot. But the results of the election come out, and the same people are back in again. And, not to bring up Facebook, but everybody in the world is on Facebook. All you see is all the complaints and how everyone is dissatisfied, and between traffic and roads not being fixed and sidewalks not being fixed. Just had an election, all the same people got right back in again. So I think it's something that term limits are an evil necessity at all levels, whether it's federal, state, and local. I think you need that mix of people. You need the mix. You need new blood. And I think it's a positive thing. That's just my opinion. Barry, I don't know.
Well, I agree. I mean, I have a state rep that's been in for 30 years, maybe more. I don't even know. I think he got elected in '85, and he might have lost for a term and then came back. It's just like he's an old shoe. There's a hole in it. You don't want to get rid of it. They keep electing him. And then I look in the paper that he's voted to raise the gas tax. And he can vote however he wants because he knows that he's not worried about losing his seat. Right. And, if we want to get into the gas tax, it's easy to raise the gas tax when gas prices are low. It takes no, the gas price is low, let's hit them for another dime. But if it's sitting on $3 a gallon, that really has an impact on people. On everything moves by truck in terms of how we get our food, our products. So, you know, we have casino money, we have pot money, and that's another issue. We don't even know where that stands in Peabody. And next year we're going to get sports gambling money, which they're talking 25, 30 million maybe in revenue. It's not enough. It's not enough. We got to just keep going back to the well. I think a gas tax is the most regressive tax because it really raises the prices. It can cause havoc, but it's low right now, right? Because so people aren't. Oh, it's only a dime. It's $2.20 a gallon. What happens if it's? Remember what happens at $3 a gallon? You can't sell an SUV, you know. So I think that back to the point of term limits, absolutely, and you can really get into the weeds on this about. You know, I'm a firm believer of, and I don't want to be a hypocrite because, you know, I do get a pension from the city and you get a pension from the police, but I didn't run for office to get a pension, okay? So number one, you can structure this in a different way so we don't, so we had one council that served for 20-some odd years on the council, then gets a job with the city. You know, so 20 years and 5 of the city, he's going to walk away with 80% and walk away with 60, 70 grand for the rest of his life. And that's not what it's about. Right. That's not what it's about. That's kind of almost like an abuse of the system, but it's legal because that's what the system allows. So you almost want to say no pensions, okay, and then you, as an elected official, I'm not talking for police officers, but as an elected official, you come in, you get the benefit of health insurance, you're doing the job, you can even bump up their pay, and when you leave, you leave. Oh, we have another call. Oh. You're on, caller.
Hey, Barry, John, how are you?
Good. Thanks for calling in.
Barry, this would be my annual time to tell you, can you please run again? Please come back. I'm begging you. Anyway, back on the previous caller about term limits, I find it funny that the most powerful person in the world has term limits, but a city councilor or a school committee person, no term limits.
That's a great point. That's really a great point. But it's so funny, caller, that in some communities like Salem, they bounce people out regularly. You know, a mayor is a different story. Unless you majorly screw up as mayor, it's very hard to unseat a mayor. But in Salem, they're constantly getting rid of councilors, ward councilors left and right. Peabody, it's more like once you're in, you're in. And you're in for life. And no matter what you do, unless you do something heinous, you stay in. And I agree. I think change is good. Because I think absolute power corrupts, and change is good.
No question. I just came in the last 20 minutes, so I'm not sure if you guys talked about this. What's the over-under on the new superintendent in schools to be Chris Lloyd, because he's already there? Isn't that the way? You can bring in 72 people. I don't care who you're going to bring in. It's going to be the person that is sitting at the table today.
You're right. But John, do you have a comment on this?
I don't have a comment on this one. I don't get involved in the school issues, so.
I don't know if this guy is great, mediocre, indifferent. I don't know anything about the guy. I don't work at the high school. I don't know. I heard some good things about him. Is he waiting to be certified? We're going to play that game again, and we're going to wait years.
We did that before, right? We did that.
Yes, and the city, the high school, the system needs strong leadership. My preference, and I know it won't happen, total outsider, someone that comes in from a large school district that understands the intricacies of what we're dealing with bilingual populations, English as a second language, gangs, drugs, all these things. They have to understand it. You can't take somebody from Middleton and put them into our school system. So as far as it went from 33 to 7, so they knocked out the whole. I hear you. And look, all I want is the best superintendent. I don't want any more interims for life, you know, that are stewards and just agree with everything and take it. And then we kind of just flounder like this for 4
Barry,
years.
One of the 7 people were from Providence, who the state just took over the Providence school system a year ago. And he's a candidate. He was part of the problem.
Wow.
The state took over the school system.
Wow. Where did this list come out? Last thing I heard, there was 33. Now they're down to 7.
There's 7, and he's on the 7. It's Chris Lloyd. It's somebody from, I think, Revere, Everett.
Wow.
And what they're saying now is, oh my God, Linfield needs a superintendent too, so we have to get ahead of this. It's March.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know. We can't have an interim. No more interim. After this, you got to get to leadership and get this system moving forward. You know, you got to have balance.
I just want to be on the record to say, with all due respect, I know this was a trying. Nobody saw this coming.
Oh,
so that's,
no, I know.
It's a horrible situation. However, why'd you have to go to this guy? If Chris Lloyd is on the list now, he was sitting right there. Oh, wait, that's right, too. He was the principal at the high school and the assistant superintendent. How is that possible?
I'm not on the school committee. I don't know the thought process, why they do things, but the proof is in the pudding. Let's see how the MCAS, we're in level 3. We can't go to 4 because then the state comes in.
Right.
So let's hope that they make the right decision and bring in the right leader. I will use that word, leader. I want a leader. Just like we want leadership on our council. We want leaders, not followers. And, you know, I guess in some way, I could call us nonconformists, but not to the point where, you know, you're out there. But, you know, I do things the way I want to do them. You know, I wear these shoes. I comb my hair. I'm me.
Right.
Why do you listen to that music? Why do you wear those shoes? I'm not you. I'm me. I do what I wanted. And so we need somebody to come in and show leadership and not, yeah, buddy, nice, yeah, yes, and just vote yes, and step up to the plate and bring us the best superintendent we can get.
All right, Barry, I'm going to put the order in tomorrow for your signs.
Okay.
You ready?
I know where you can get them, too.
Guys, have a good night.
All right, thanks for calling in. Appreciate it. We still got a little time left. So let's go back to the mayor's race. So do you think that they should disconnect it from the...
Yes, most certainly. Because even in the paper when you read it, there was some councilors that, you know, expressed some concern because it was like giving themselves an automatic pay increase. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, and I appreciate the fact that they feel that way, and I think that they're correct in what they're saying, then separate it. They're the council. Mm-hmm. They can change it. So again, it would take somebody that, you know, would put that forward and change it. But you have to guarantee them the opportunity that they're going to have a raise as well.
That's a good point.
So it has to maybe stay in the same year as the mayor's, or it can be the future. In other words, they can vote on a pay raise for the next group coming in, the next term. So they may not get that raise, but whether they are incumbents or whether someone new comes in, they get that raise. So the raise that they're voting on is not really for themselves, it's for the next candidate. Yeah. Hypothetical.
That's a great way to do it. The other way to do, the real, you know, what I think should happen is no one, like I said, no one in their right mind is going to say, hey, I want a raise, give it to me now, I'm up for election. What needs to happen is the mayor has to bring forward the council raise. If it's an election year, so be it. And the council deserves a raise, just like he's proposed raises for all the non-union people, right. every other thing. So it's up to the mayor, just like the council gives 2%. I'd be a little insulted, but that's another discussion. You know, the mayor should say that the council deserves a 2% raise.
Right.
You know, and in some of the comments, okay, thank you. But some of the comments, like one counselor said, I can't vote for this because I don't know the impact on the budget. And I'm like, well, the budget's $165 million and the mayor's raise is $2,400. Like that I don't quite understand. And I was sitting there, I was trying to, is something I'm missing here?
No, I
$2,400. I mean, I guess he didn't guess what the impact was when they gave guaranteed raises for 3 years to non-union people. That was okay. There was no thought into that.
But when it's coming up for a vote, would you not have done the work before you got there so you know what the impact was going to be?
Yeah.
That's just, I don't even know.
$2,400 is quite a small amount of money. I don't know what the mayor's making $1.30. Is that what the mayor makes?
I at this point,
He was like a $1.20. Then I think it went like 10. So I don't know who proposed 2%. That's kind of a slap in the face.
It's probably because that's what everyone across the city got.
Yeah,
all the city unions, all the city employees, everybody got 2%.
Look at
the Peabody's famous for just rubber stamping 2% on everybody.
Look at the mayor's sale
goes across the board.
Making $1.50. I'm not saying you give him a $20,000 raise, but
no,
give him a $5,000 raise for God's sake. Don't insult him. And then the person that the mayor got to bail out votes against his raise. So what do I know? It's a conundrum. And that was interesting, that the person called, because that was one of the topics, on the superintendent search. And, somebody else said that to me, that, it's going to be an insider. And I go, whatever,
Yeah, my thing is, if that's their choice, then go with it. Don't do a worldwide search. Don't go with the person who's right here.
Well, that's the other thing, too.
If you think he or she can do the job and do the job well, give them that opportunity. Give them that opportunity. If they've worked in the school system and they've dedicated themselves to the city, give them the opportunity. You don't do a worldwide search and take somebody next door or take somebody from another city or town if you really believe that person can do the job.
Yeah, and then to do the whirlwind tour, where you got to take these people that think they have a chance, interview them in front of 150 parents, knowing that they have no real shot of getting the job because the local person's going to get it. Don't do that to people.
Right.
Let them go off to positions. We have 2 minutes left. Let them go off to positions where they have a shot at getting the job.
Correct.
And I hope that that he's the right. If he's the right choice, I don't want to assume that, but well, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Thank you.
This was
very interesting.
Well, you're in the hot seat. You're in the hot seat, and I just want to finish up with a little, there's concern about the coronavirus, so everybody out there, please be safe. Try not to change your habits, but, we still have to be careful in what we do.
Right.
But let's not live in fear of this. And all things pass, and it will pass. I just think that it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Of course.
It's probably going to be a few months. And what I'm afraid of is, the impact on the economy. Businesses, people aren't flying to conferences, to trade shows. People are not buying things. So we want to make sure that any fears that are out there are serious. Not to panic people. Did I see you over at Costco buying 180 things of toilet paper and water?
They're all out.
They're all out.
The toilet paper thing is really blowing my mind. Water I can see, toilet paper I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. So
yeah, they're giving us the cut signal, and so once again, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate
thank you
it.
for everyone.
And thank you for your service. What do you got? 30 seconds? 30 seconds? No, we're done. We're done. All right. Listen, thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next time when you make the call. Thank you.